Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Minding My Mental Health. I am Tanitria Williams, and I am your host for today. Today's topic is dealing with toxic family members. If you are watching me live, I want you to hashtag live and let me know where you're watching from. If you're watching the replay, I would like for you to hashtag replay. And again, let me know where you're watching from. I also want you to help me out with some social media outreach. So I'm going to do the same. I want you to share this video to groups that you are a part of, share it to pages that you have permission, share it to your stories, tag some friends, all of that good stuff, right? So let me take a moment to actually find it and share this video as well. Here we go. I'll give people just a moment to join us. Again, let me know where you're watching from. Hashtag live and tag a friend, tag some family members. I'm going to give people just a few minutes. I'm waiting for people to jump on. So I'm going to give it just a few minutes before we get into our topic because I think it's an important topic. Of course, I think it's an important topic, right? But as we're talking about this, I think you're going to begin to see maybe just how important that topic is because all of us have family, and sometimes that's not always the healthiest situations or healthiest relationships. So it's important that we learn how to deal with it when those relationships are not quite as healthy as we would like for them to be. So again, I'm doing a little bit of outreach here myself. If you're watching us, I see a couple people joining. If you're watching us, please hashtag live and let me know where you're watching from. Share this video with friends and family if you don't mind. Tag your people. Hey, Chandra. Hey, Sinitra. Again, share. It's an important topic. And I want to give us some skills and some wisdom on how to better deal with some of this stuff. All right, so I see people joining us. I want to get started because I still want to respect your time. So again, today we are talking about dealing with toxic family members. And so before we get into actually the steps of that, what I want to talk about is some mindsets that you have to overcome when you're dealing with toxic family members. Let me know if this is something that you had to deal with in your life, having to deal with someone who was unhealthy. So another word for toxic could be unhealthy. Let me know if you had to deal with someone in your family who was unhealthy and if that was a strain on you in that relationship, or if you're currently going through that. Let me know kind of what if you've had to deal with this situation. So again, I want to talk about the mindset because I don't think it's as beneficial for us to just jump into steps when people don't have the right mindset. And our mindset typically is the thing that determines whether we move forward or we get stuck. So let's talk about a couple mindsets that keep people stuck when they're dealing with people in their family that are unhealthy or unhealed or plain out toxic. So the first mindset that I think people have to overcome is the mindset that says family over everything. Family over everything. Now, this mindset promotes this idea of loyalty, and it sounds really good in theory, but it's not always healthy in practice because sometimes what happens is it overrides our personal sense of well-being. And so we're so loyal to a system that is not healthy for us that it actually can be damaging to us as an individual. So overcoming this involves recognizing that just because someone is blood related doesn't mean that they have the right to hurt you, to mistreat you, or to violate your boundaries. It's okay. In fact, I encourage you to understand that it is healthy for you to prioritize your mental health over family dynamics. I actually recently posted a picture on social media from church on Sunday, and nobody that I was in that picture with was actually blood related to me, but everyone in that picture I considered family. And sometimes we have to recognize the importance of saying, hey, when we're saying family over everything, that does not include my mental health, my sanity, or even my physical health at times, so you have to be really mindful that that mindset of family over everything can actually keep you stuck because you're so committed to a system or to a person or to something that is not committed to you. Okay, that's not committed to your growth. How do you know when I say not committed to you? This doesn't mean that people don't love you, but they may not be the place or the soil for you to adequately get the nutrients you need to grow. Okay, so the first mindset to overcome dealing with toxic family members is that mindset of family over everything. We have to overcome that. The next mindset I think that we have to look at is that I have to fix them. Many of us have this idea that I have to be responsible for being the person that helps out the family, meaning I have to be the person who saves everybody or gets them to see it a different way. I have to be the catalyst for change in my family, without realizing sometimes you have to do that apart from your family. You can be the catalyst for change, but sometimes you have to do that away from the family. So many people feel responsible for changing or slash healing their family members. So in reality, you can't change your family members. You can only change how you respond to them. You can be your best self, which may inspire them to change. You can give them encouragement, but ultimately their change is on them. And you have to be committed to you being your best self so that they can see that and hopefully be a reflection and a drawing factor for them to want to grow and change. And many of you have seen this in your own life. You started to eat differently or you started to do things differently. Your family wasn't committed to doing it your way until they started seeing results with you. Once they started seeing you lose weight or get healthy, get off the medication, being able to be more active, then they started saying, hey, tell me what you're doing. But oftentimes we're trying to bring people along on a journey that we haven't even started ourselves. And so what I would encourage you to do is take the journey yourself, work on the healing for yourself. And as you do that, hopefully other people in your family will see that and be inspired. But again, remember, you aren't responsible for changing your family because no one else can change somebody else unless that person wants to be changed and they can be inspired and even given wisdom to follow along. But it's not your responsibility to change someone else. We all have to do that ourselves. The next mindset is if I keep trying, it'll work. If I just keep trying, it will work. Oftentimes we keep working, trying to get someone to see something that they are not committed to seeing. And I learned years ago that sometimes we stay stuck because we're trying to get people committed that are not committed. And there are so many other people that actually are committed that we could get to our destination and hit our goals if we said, hey, I'm going to go. And if those who want to follow me can. But if we stay committed to saying, I have to change these people, and we just keep staying there, sometimes again we can get stuck. So it's common for us to have a hope that our family members will heal. It's common for us, it's even a positive thing for us to have hope that our family members can change. But ultimately we have to recognize the behavior that's in front of us. That doesn't mean that we give up on them. It just means we say, hey, I'm going to do what I can do, but I'm not going to stay stuck alongside with you, or I'm not going to be abused while you're working through that. I'm not going to be hurt in the process of while you're working through your stuff. So you have to recognize that it's okay to say, I'm going to step away. Let me know if you guys have any comments or questions as you're in here with me. The next mindset that you have to overcome is, if I distance myself, I'm a bad person. If I distance myself, I'm a bad person. Oftentimes, again, it goes back to that family over everything. And what we've been taught is that if you start distancing yourself, you're basically saying you don't want to be connected with us. Guilt can come from, especially if you come from a culture that's collective and family is important and community is important. And I love family. I have an amazing family, and I love being able to hang out with my family and all of that stuff. But if you come from a culture where family is celebrated and community is celebrated, it can feel very selfish, really, to say, hey, this isn't healthy for me, because we tend to believe that we need to stay in community. And I do think community is important. However, an unhealthy community is still an unhealthy community. And so community is important, but you want to make sure that that community is healthy for you to be in. So understanding that protecting your well-being doesn't mean you're selfish or cruel. It can actually help you to overcome this guilt. So understanding that that's not selfish, it's healthy for you, and ultimately it even gives other people in that group freedom to do what's healthy for them as well. Number six, I think I see this a lot, not being able to recognize toxic behavior. So the mindset that you have to overcome with the next one is that this toxic behavior is not normal. Sometimes normalizing toxic behavior comes because we've seen something so long. So if you always saw all the men in your family cheating, you expect that that is the norm. So when you get married, you expect your husband's probably going to cheat at least a couple times. That is something that people normalize because they see it. However, it should not be okay. If you guys are not in an open relationship, you cannot normalize something and then be hurt. Well, you can. Let me go back. You don't want to normalize it because then you begin to accept things that you actually don't want in your life. So overcoming this mindset requires recognizing the difference between healthy and unhealthy. How do you begin to recognize it? You have to expose yourself to new information and different information, different people, right? So again, what do I mean by that? You have to say, I want to see if there are people, if there are everybody in my group, if the men all cheat. I need to get around some people where the men don't cheat. Why? Because I need to see that. I need to see what that physically looks like. And once you begin to see that it's possible, then your expectation can begin to change. Once you see what's possible, your expectation changes, right? And so exposure is really important for you to stop normalizing toxic behavior in your family. If your mom always cursed you out, that's normal for you. If you get around family where their moms don't cuss them out, you begin to go, wait a minute, why didn't your mama curse you? I've noticed we've been here all weekend and your mom never cursed you. You begin to see something different, right? And so you may say, when I grow up and have children, I don't want to curse at my children, because now you see something else is a possibility. Yes, your environment is always working on you, Sinitra, absolutely. And so it's important that we recognize the environment that we surround ourselves with is important. Even when you're talking about, this is not necessarily the topic today, but if you're talking about dating, if you're around people who normalize, again, the drama and the trauma of dating, that you begin to think that's what I have to accept. But if you're around people that are healthy, it begins to set the expectation of what's healthy in your life. So breaking up with that idea that toxic behavior is normal. Another mindset I think we have to overcome when dealing with toxic family members is the need for their approval or acceptance. Many of us crave the validation from our family members. Now, there is nothing wrong with wanting your family to be proud of you. There is nothing wrong with having this desire for love and acceptance in a family. And most of us have come to expect that because that's what we've gotten. But in some toxic families, that's not a healthy place. So even if the dynamic is unhealthy, people still want that acceptance. And so they may do things that go against their internal moral compass because they do want that validation. They may go against things or accept things that make them feel a certain way because they want that validation from their family members. Overcoming this need for approval, it does take internal work, and it takes work where you're saying, hey, why is it so important that this particular person shows me love? Now, I'm going to get on my soapbox for just a minute. A lot of this comes from the idea of shoulds. What are shoulds? Shoulds are standards that we impose on people that they may or may not have agreed to. For an example, we may say things like, a mother should do this, or a father should do this, a brother should do this. Again, you have to ask yourself, did they agree to this? Do they have the capacity to do this, even if they did agree? And even if they did agree, have they shown me that they are willing to do this, right? So did they agree? Do they have the capacity? And do they have the willingness to do it? When we release some of those shoulds, we are able to say, yes, I would love to have love from this mother, this father, this sister, this brother. However, they have shown me that they are not willing to give me that, or they don't have the capacity to give me that. It doesn't mean that I don't deserve it, and it doesn't mean that I can't get it. I just may not be able to get it from that particular person. And that's where the shoulds catch us up, because we say, I should be able to get it from mom or from dad because they are mom and they are dad, right? But in the event that you say, this person, even though our biology is connected, they may not have the ability or desire to do that. And so I have to release them. This is really important. You have to release them from the idea that they are supposed to do that. Yes, it would be great, but if they can't, you release them to be whoever they are going to be, good, bad, or ugly, and find someone who can love you, who can validate you, who can give you support in time of need. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Let me know if that makes sense, if you have questions about that. It's really important that you don't get caught up in the shoulds. Let me read this comment here. It says, I felt a bit emotional, glad I stumbled on your live for your insight. I have adopted family who I feel can be selfish. I'm pregnant, have health issues, but we're mad because I didn't want to go on vacation, even though I had explained my health situation. They were not concerned about my health whatsoever. And now they don't want to speak to me because I didn't go. But I won't go anywhere with my health not intact, and people are careless with my well-being. So how do I go about this situation? Okay, the first thing is, I think you recognize, I think it's Ashley Ann. Recognize your health is important. And I think you can do that in a healthy way, explaining, hey, I would have loved to have gone on vacation with you guys. However, again, because of my health, I couldn't take that risk. Also recognizing that they may or may not respond the way that you want them to respond, and you have to be okay with accepting them for who they are. This doesn't mean that you have to cut everybody off, but it may you have to make adjustments to your expectations or your relationship. Okay, so if you have family members who are angry because you didn't go on vacation and you didn't want to jeopardize that, I can understand them being disappointed because maybe they wanted you to go, right? They wanted you to go, right? And so they were excited about the possibility of you being able to go, but explaining it wasn't personal, explaining that you were having to take care of yourself, and hopefully they would get that. Again, going back to this idea of I can change them, you may be able to explain to them, but if they are committed to misunderstanding you, they're going to keep misunderstanding you. People who are committed to understanding you will try to have a dialogue and be open. Yes, Miss Cynthia, I am a therapist. So you can reach out to me in my inbox if you are interested in some therapy. So I think it's really important that we start to recognize the idea of, hey, I don't have to stay in this situation that is unhealthy for me. Okay, it's really important. And then recognize everybody's got their own stuff and people are working through it. Don't take their stuff personally. I think another mindset that we have to overcome is that boundaries are disrespectful, right? Again, if you grew up in certain cultures or certain homes, boundaries may have been blurred depending on how things were, right? And so sometimes we believe that when we set a boundary, we're being mean. The reality is that we aren't being mean. We're simply saying these are the guidelines of how I need to be treated. Shifting your mindset involves understanding that boundaries are actually necessary for healthy relationships. All healthy relationships have boundaries. Put that in the comment. All healthy relationships have boundaries. It is the unhealthy relationships that don't have any boundaries. Even husband and wife, there are boundaries. With me and my children, we have boundaries. There are certain things, just because I'm mom, I don't just get to do because I'm an adult or because I'm mom. There are still things. Now, there are certain things that I will do, but all healthy relationships have some level of boundary. And when they don't, you have problems. Okay. The next mindset I think you have to overcome is that I'm stuck with them. How many of you, like, this is the only family you will get? That's not really true. You can create another family. What do I mean? You can say, this family's unhealthy. I'm going to go and begin to interact with people who are healthier and build that relationship there. Also, sometimes relationships within that family is going to change anyways. And so it's not always this idea of I'm just stuck here. This is all I have. Your fatalistic mindset assumes that you don't have a choice but to endure this toxic behavior, endure the neglect, abuse, this violation, realizing that you do have a power to make a choice. That may be limiting your interaction. That may be distancing yourself from people who are unhealthy. That may be, again, in you finding a group that really represents healthiness for you and serves as a healthy landing space for you. It's important that you recognize you're not stuck. That may be the family you were born into, but it does not mean that's where you have to go. If it's Christmas time, you don't have to go to a gathering that is going to cause you emotional and mental stress. If it's vacation time, you don't have to go on vacation just because the rest of the family is going. You have to keep your mental health intact. Now, I will also say this: if you are the person that is causing the drama or is always stirring the pot, and you're like, oh, I want to protect my mental health because you don't want to be confronted, that's a whole different issue. You have to deal with your own toxicity there, right? But if it's a situation where someone is abusing you, neglecting you, mistreating you, you don't have to put yourself in that situation just for the sake of the fact knowing that they are family. Here's another one I think we have to overcome. Let me know if this is helping you guys. If you have questions or comments, put them in the comment section for me. Breaking from the norm will cause problems. Sometimes we think if I do something that's different from everybody else in my family, it's going to rock the boat, and I don't want to be the pot stirrer, right? People often feel the need to avoid conflict because they say they're keeping the peace. Now, I am not telling you that you have to point out everybody's flaws. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about when behavior is unhealthy towards you, when a behavior is unhealthy, it's okay to say, hey, this is actually not okay. This is actually not healthy for me. So I don't want to do that. For example, if you have Big Mama who is constantly criticizing everyone, you may simply say, hey, I love Big Mama, but if she started talking about my kids, we're going to go ahead and leave. I love so-and-so, but if this behavior happens, I'm going to say, hey, please don't speak to my children that way. Now, that may rock the boat, especially if they're older and we have a reverence for our older family members. But if you say, hey, please don't speak to my children in that manner, and they continue and you leave, that may rock the boat. But it also may send a message to your children that they are protected by their mom, and ultimately give them a sense of, assertiveness, or a sense of empowerment, so that they can feel that they can speak up for themselves later on and begin to break those cycles. So breaking from the norm will cause problems is a mindset that we have to challenge. Learning that peace doesn't mean tolerating mistreatment. Learning that keeping your peace is not keeping the peace outside while having internal turmoil or storms on the inside of you. Keeping the peace says, I will speak up for myself, and I am going to make sure that I have peace internally as well, because that is just as important. So these are the mindsets that I think we have to address and overcome when you're dealing with toxic family members. Now I want to get into kind of some steps that we can do when overcoming. Before we get into that though, which one of these mindsets have you struggled with, or have you had to overcome yourself? Which one of these mindsets did you have to, did you recognize, or that you have had to overcome yourself? And that was, family is everything. I have to fix them. If I keep trying, I have to keep trying to change them. I need to distance myself, but that makes me bad. Toxic behavior is normal. I need their approval or acceptance. Boundaries are disrespectful, or I'm stuck with them, or breaking the norm will cause problems. So again, these are all mindsets that hopefully Shavondra said she had to overcome all of those, right? So I'm glad you did, Shavondra. I'm glad you recognize those and either are overcoming them or have overcome them. So let's talk about some ways that we overcome these things, or some action steps that you can actually do to help you when you're dealing with this. The first one is to set boundaries. And I think y'all knew most of that, right? Clearly define your boundaries. Clearly defining your boundaries, it says, this is what um, is allowed for me. This is what I allow for me. This is what I don't allow. And it's okay for you to say something's not okay. Okay. You can be firm and respectful. Okay. I think that's important. Sometimes we wait until we are so angry that when we do set a boundary, it is mean, it is nasty, and then you look like the villain. And it turns around and so went off. All of those types of things. The reality is, when you see the violation before it gets to this point of they violated you 15 times, you need to go ahead and speak on that the first time in a respectful way, so that way you don't end up blowing up and then again you become the villain, or at least in their mind, right? Or at least in the story that they tell, not always in reality. But so it is important that you begin to set those boundaries early, and set those boundaries clearly. um, for example, if a conversation often leads to emotional distress, limit that topic. Like, I'm not going to keep talking about this thing, because every time we talk about this thing, we go to this place. So you could even, a boundary may say, I'm willing to talk about that if we talk about it with a mediator. I'm willing to talk about that if we can do it without yelling. I'm willing to talk about that if we do it without name calling. But if we start name call, or if you start name calling, if you start yelling, I'm not going to continue that conversation. And so those are establishing healthy boundaries. It's saying, I can communicate, but we're going to have some guidelines to how we communicate. What people understand boundaries. People understand because they watch sports, they play games, sports, all of these types of things. They have boundaries. It says, if you are playing football, you can only go within a certain radius, right? You can't run up in the stands and then run to the end zone and think that it counts. There's an out of bounds. Likewise, when we're talking about establishing healthy boundaries, there is a point where you go, that behavior is out of bounds. That's not okay. So it's important that we recognize this. What about family members who provoke you, such as mocking your boundaries or passively apologizing for crossing those boundaries on purpose? So I think, Ashley Ann, it's important that you probably begin, especially if they're mocking your boundaries, recognize that they are not emotionally, they've got some emotional immaturity within themselves. Maintain your boundary, and then you may have to begin to establish a distance. So I think this is important. I'm glad you brought that up. Sometimes when we're talking boundaries, we think boundaries are telling people what they can do. Boundaries are really establishing what you will accept. So an example, I can tell, I actually have a family member on here. My cousin Nika's here. So I'm going to use her as an example. If Nika and I are talking and Nika starts yelling at me, I can tell Nika not to yell at me, but the reality is I don't have any power to stop her from yelling. So telling her, stop yelling at me, stop yelling at me, stop yelling at me, is actually not establishing a boundary. It's trying to control Nika. Establishing a boundary says, Nika, if you continue to yell at me, I am going to leave. So if Nika continues to yell, I then leave. That's the boundary. It may sound like it's semantics and it's just words, but the difference is, one is I'm trying to control her, which I cannot do. The other one says I can't control her, but I can control how I respond. And if I stand here and listen to her yell at me. Okay. So again, if Nika's yelling at me and I keep saying, Nika stops, Nika stop, Nika stop, I'm trying to control her. I can't do that. But if I say, don't yell at me, and if you yell at me, I'm going to leave, and I follow through, well, then I've established a healthy boundary. I decided that I'm not going to accept that. So Ashley Ann, if your family member is doing something, you can say, I don't have to accept that. Does that make sense? And y'all, Nika does not yell at me. Nika's a great cousin. Okay, I want to clarify. Does that make sense? That example, one is trying to control the other person, and the other one is saying what I can accept and what I'm willing to deal with. Okay. It says, before I got to the place of having healthy boundaries, it was an explosion that happened, and the line was drawn in the sand. I didn't want to have be an angry, explosive person anymore. Yeah. So it is important that we begin to do our internal work with learning what triggers us, learning how to deal with these things, because if we don't, again, we become those angry people. And sometimes we may even lash out on the wrong people ourselves if we don't learn how to deal with the toxic people that are coming for us. Okay. So it says, I take action and respond to set and establish and affirm my boundaries. And the result is the other person will see it clearly. Yes. Yes. Okay. So the first one was setting boundaries. Number two, another action step is to limit exposure, reduce your time spent in toxic environments. Now, just because someone is, maybe you're uncomfortable with someone, doesn't necessarily mean they're toxic. They may be a challenging person, meaning, um, if you're around someone who holds you accountable, and you've been saying you want to eat right, and you're sitting there and you got three gallons of ice cream and chocolate chip cookies and chips, and they say, hey, I thought you were going to eat right. Well, that's not necessarily a toxic situation. What that is someone holding you accountable to something that you said, right? But recognizing toxicity is when your mental health begins to be compromised or suffering because you're in an environment that is unhealthy. So limiting your exposure or distancing yourself may be necessary for mental well-being. Prioritize it even if it's difficult. Yes, absolutely. This can help in the workplace as well. I think that's Sheila. Yeah, this stuff is true in the workplace as well. The next thing is detach emotionally. What does that mean? Practice emotional detachment by recognizing that you cannot change their behavior. We talked about this earlier. You can't control their behavior, only your reaction. It helps your mental space. So sometimes we are so stuck on, I got to change them, I got to get them to see it, that we don't recognize our own power. And I think that's the beauty in understanding the difference between a real boundary and just trying to control somebody else. Because that way, emotionally, you can say, I can't control them. So emotionally, I'm more detached. And I say, I can't control them. But what I can do is hang up the phone when they start cursing at me. What I can do is to say that this behavior is unacceptable and we won't continue to stay here if this behavior continues. What I can do is respond in a kind way. What I can do is maintain the boundaries that I've set. So I think that's important. The next thing is seek help. Right? Talk to a friend. I recommend talk to a therapist who can provide you with different perspectives and help you to process your feelings in a healthy way. Emotional support is really important when you're dealing with toxic family members. Why? Oftentimes, especially if you're talking family, it's been something that you've heard or dealt with most of your life, oftentimes. Sometimes it's even a lot of manipulation. And so you may be sitting there thinking that you're processing things in a healthy way, but you're really using language that other people have used to manipulate you to try to process it. And that's going to cause you to feel this circular stuff. So example, if you are holding on to the mindset that family over everything, if you're trying to work through that yourself, you keep saying, yes, but I should do that because family is more over everything, right? And so you're recycling toxic mindsets in your head, and you need to have someone outside of you to be able to help you see a different perspective. So that's why it's so important to seek some help. The next practical step is to practice self-care. Now, sometimes we hear about self-care a lot, but I think it's important that we recognize the strength of self-care. Taking care of yourself. Taking care of yourself is important. And I mean that physically, watching what we eat, watching how we move our bodies. Why? Because if I already have to deal with toxic family members, I need to be the healthiest I can. I need to be able to move my body. And it also helps. Stress is one of the things that kills people more than they recognize. Sorry. And so if we begin to stop and say, I've got to take care of my mental health. And so if I need to take a break and go get a massage, I'm going to do that and release some of that stress from my body. If I need to go for a walk, if I need to start an exercise program, if I need to start, eating a certain way, I'm going to do those things, because when I'm my best, I can handle things in a better way. I can maintain those boundaries a lot better. So it's important that you do practice self-care. Practicing self-care is more than just getting your nails and toes done. Practicing self-care is learning how to confront things in a healthy way. Practicing self-care is, again, treating your body and your mind right. It's developing healthy coping skills so that when things do come and they do stress you out, that you have an outlet that you know is healthy that can help you. For me, moving my body is one of my favorite, I guess, coping skills. So when stress comes, it is not unheard of for me to say, I'm going for a walk. Why? Because it physically helps me to release the stress that my body is holding. Your body is not designed to carry all of that stress for long periods of time. And so you have to have healthy ways to release that. So that's really important. The next practical step is number 6. Use I statements. Using I statements helps when you're confronting someone to keep it about the topic and not about the person. When you are confronting bad behavior within the family or toxic behavior, you want to try not to make it about the other people being bad. What you want to do is try to address an issue. Hey, I don't like when I'm spoken to this way. Hey, I need this. I feel this, rather than you are this way. You did this, you did that. Because when people hear you, they automatically get defensive. And so if you want to work through those toxic traits, you want to make sure you're not bringing a bunch of them in yourself, right? And so using I messages helps you to be able to address the issue without attacking the other person. And it also helps to improve the communication between you and other people so that you can hopefully come to more of a common ground and an understanding. Number 7, of course, this is important. You got to know when to walk away. You have to know when to walk away. If the toxicity escalates and it affects your well-being, it's okay to remove yourself from the situation temporarily or permanently, depending on the offense or depending on, the situation. There are just some things that we have to recognize are just not okay. And it's okay for you to say, I'm going to sit out during this holiday season and maybe we'll try again next holiday season. Or they're not healthy for me at all. For many of you, you have to work through those mindsets that we talked about initially, the family over everything, because those things will pull you in. You get into the shoulds. I should be around family at Christmas. I should be doing this on this day, or I should be doing this on my mama's birthday, or so whatever it is, right? And it'll pull you back in. You have to learn to know when to walk away. Now, I'm also not an advocate for every little offense means that you need to cut off people. I think you have to learn some conflict resolution skills, right? But if you've tried healthy conflict resolution and those people are not responding to you, it's okay for you to say, I've done that. Now, if you say, I've done a couple things, I don't know if it was actually good or not, it's okay for you to say, maybe I need to go to counseling. Maybe I need to learn effective coping or effective communication skills and effective conflict resolution, because sometimes the issue is not as bad as we think it is. We don't have the skills to navigate through it. And there are family members. I've actually had a lot of family sessions, and family sessions meaning adult people bringing in their moms and their brothers saying, hey, we need to work through some stuff. So if you need someone to help you kind of navigate some family dynamics, that's okay to reach out and get some professional help. But again, if you said, I've tried these avenues and it's not working, it's okay to say, I'm going to have to walk away. I actually have worked with people and they have literally struggled and caused themselves a lot of anxiety because they are so sad about walking away from some people that have shown them literally over 20 or 30 years that they are toxic, and they are not interested in changing their behavior, or they have not shown any attempt, I should say, in changing their behavior. But because they are really stuck on some of those mindset shifts, they continue to accept it, and it keeps causing a cycle of trauma and drama in their lives, which ultimately beats down that person's self-esteem, right? And as that happens, it becomes even harder to get away from an unhealthy or toxic relationship when your self-confidence and self-esteem is low. And that's one of the dangers of staying in a place where it's unhealthy, because it affects your self-esteem, your confidence, which makes it harder to leave, which creates the greater cycle of it's hard to leave. So I stay here. The longer I stay here, the worse I feel. The worse I feel, the longer I stay here. And it becomes this really messy place. But there is help, and there is, you do have the ability to walk away. The next thing is number 8. And again, this one to me, it takes your self-work. It is avoiding reactivity. Avoiding reactivity. When toxic behaviors arise, it's really easy for us to get pulled into responding from our emotions, right? So someone accuses you of something that you didn't do, or someone says something that triggers something on the inside of you. It is easy, trust me, I know, to react in with that emotional response of, I know you didn't, I know. And like, as some people, they may read you for filth or whatever, right? The key is to say, hey, I've got to be in control of me. I've got to be in control. Is this helping you guys? I want you to share this broadcast, tag somebody. I've got to be in control of me, because I can't keep blaming everybody else for me blowing up. I just, at some point, I got to grow up. I can't keep blaming my mama that this is the 3rd year in a row that I blew up at Christmas time. I just can't do that. I can't keep blaming my brother that this is the 4th year in a row that I ran off and did this, right? You have to be able to say, I got to learn how to control my stuff. What are my triggers? Why is that a trigger? Why am I still taking this? What is it on the inside of me that is making it difficult for me to walk away? And sometimes that's trauma that you need help healing from, and that's okay. Healing is available, but you do have to do the work. So I want to say avoid reactivity, but you can't really just say that without saying you got to do the internal work to do that, because naturally you're probably going to be reactive. But responding is the goal, right? Not to just react, but to respond. What's the difference? Reacting is the first thing that comes out. Response is, I hear what happened. I may feel what happened. I feel triggered, or all of these things happen. I take a pause and I choose how I respond. The difference between reactivity and a response is reactivity comes up without me feeling like I have a choice. It just comes out. Or response is, I am choosing how I respond, and I choose to respond in a healthy, calmer manner. So that again takes some internal work. So whenever you see someone that triggers you, or you see a situation that triggers you, you remember you have the power to pause, process it in those moments, and respond. For an example, if I come up to you and I say, "Oh, you the ugliest person I ever seen in my life," you can react and go, you the ugliest person, and your mama ugly, and you can go off on me, right? That would be reactivity. Response says, I walk up to you and I tell you that you're ugly. A response says, this person must have some internal hurt that they will walk up to me knowing that I haven't done anything to them and insult me. I don't have to internalize this. Number one, I don't think I am an ugly person. Number two, again, only someone with some other issues would walk up to someone and be so cruel. So I'm going to respond and say, well, I disagree. And I'm not going to let that ruin my day. I'm going to keep going about my business. That's the difference between reactivity and response. Let me know if that makes sense, if you understand the difference between reactivity and responding. So it's important that you learn how to operate with self-control, so that you don't just react, but you can respond from a healthy place. And the last one we have with our steps with overcoming, our action steps with overcoming or dealing with toxic family members, is to create a healthy support system. This is important, especially when you're talking about the mindset that we talked about earlier, when it says, this is all I've got. You only get one family, or this is the family you were born with, or whatever. It is important that you recognize that you actually do have the power to create a healthy support system. Now, it may not always start off easy, but you have to say, I'm willing to work to build a healthy system and not just be around toxicity and say that I'm stuck with that. There are people in your world that you can build a dynamic relationship with, one that has reciprocity, one that has respect, one that has mutual understanding and compassion. That's important. Let's see. Someone says, yes, I had a partner who would accuse me of being somewhere that I wasn't, and I found myself trying to prove myself. Took me a while to realize it gave them the power to know they were triggering me. And when I learned that, I stopped reacting. I didn't agree, but I stopped the urge to get angry and prove myself. Sometimes your reaction fuels other people's toxic behavior. Yeah, that's good insight that you were able to say, hey, I've got to stop trying to prove something to someone. Like I said earlier, people who are committed to misunderstanding you are going to keep misunderstanding you because they've made that commitment. And it doesn't matter what you say, and it doesn't matter how you try to shift their perspective of you. They are committed to misunderstanding you. They are committed. You see it all the time in our political climate. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. A lot of people have so committed to their candidate. It doesn't matter what other information is presented. They are committed to that. So it's important that you can recognize that. Here's the last one. Is my are we here? Are y'all here? Someone says it's freezing. Y'all let me know if y'all can see this. Am I freezing on you? Tina says it keeps freezing. So let me know if it's freezing on you guys. I'm going to give it a second. I'm going to see if people are, can you see me? Let me know. Put a 1 in the comment if you can still see and hear me very well. Not sure what's going on. Not frozen. No. Okay. Well, I'm going to keep going. It's back. Okay. So it was freezing for some people. I apologize. So the last thing is to, again, create that new healthy support system. And that may mean getting involved or reaching out and connecting with people who are good for you, who are healthy for you. So it's important that you may have to get out of your comfort zone to do that, right? I can remember, now this wasn't because of a toxic situation, but I remember during the pandemic, creating in our community, we created kind of a support system. Our kids, we all had children in elementary school who were literally at home by themselves. And we went, how can we do this? And so we started meeting outside and created this environment of support for each other during a time that was scary, during a time that we needed each other, right? And to this day, I'm still connected with those people. So it is important that you are intentional about building a healthy support system. People that, again, will be understanding, caring, and kind to you, maybe hold you accountable, but still do it with love and compassion. So I hope these steps helped you to create a greater understanding of how you can do that. If you have comments or questions, feel free to put it in the comment section. If you are looking for some therapist or a coach, depending on what you need, because everything may not be therapy. It may be that you need some coaching. I would be happy to do that. I'm going to put my contact information here. Or if you know of someone, they can email me at tenitria@gmail.com, or they can call my office, and my office number is 470-410-9790. Again, that's 470-410-9790. I am licensed. If you need counseling, I'm licensed in Arkansas and in Georgia. And if you need coaching, I can coach any state or anything like that. So again, making sure that you guys reach out if you need it. Hey, Karen, it's okay. You can catch the replay. Thanks for joining us. So again, I think it's really important that we are aware of dealing with this. And Karen just made me, I'm going to throw a bonus point in there because Karen just came on here. One of the things I think with dealing with toxic people is to recognize that it's important for you to be able to forgive them while recognizing you can forgive them and establish boundaries. Karen is going to be doing a class on forgiveness soon. So if you see a class about forgiveness, y'all make sure y'all join that with Karen when she starts promoting that. Forgiveness is really important. Why? Because you don't want to be held hostage by anger and bitterness because of what someone else did to you. So being able to forgive, and I did a whole live on that. So make sure you go back. I'll put it's on the screen here. 470-410-9790. So again, I think if you forgive, it's not saying what they did was okay. It's not condoning what they did. It's simply saying, I don't want to be held hostage to what they did. And I want to heal so that I can be my best self and I can do the things that I've been called to do. So again, I think it's really important that you recognize the need for forgiveness, but also recognize that forgiveness can still come with boundaries. Tell me more, Tina. What do you mean? Forgiveness can become baggage. What do you mean by that? Because forgiveness doesn't mean that we don't establish boundaries. You actually can forgive and still disconnect. Oh, it says the subtitle is hiding the information. I'm not sure. Subtitles. I don't know what you're talking about, Sheila. I don't see, but I'll say it out loud. The info that's on there is just my phone number, and it's 470-410-9790. 470-410-9790. Okay, Sheila just put it in the comment section. So again, making sure that you guys remember that forgiveness. I don't see Tina saying anything else. So it says, she said forgiveness can bring baggage. I think, oh, she meant unforgiveness. Okay, I'm sorry. Unforgiveness. Yeah, unforgiveness can bring baggage. When I was just going to say, when we say forgiveness can bring baggage, that's usually someone who doesn't understand that you can forgive and still establish boundaries. So making sure that you keep those things that we've talked about tucked away, so that you can apply those. Go back and watch this replay over and over again. If you didn't take notes, if you need to take some notes, because I think it can help you. Make sure you share this to your story, share this to your page, tag someone that you know has to deal with the toxic family member, and let me know how I can help. So join me right back here next Thursday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, because we are continuing to tear down the stigma of mental health and bring awareness into our community. Thank you so much for joining Minding My Mental Health, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.